Well, I'm sorry to say that today has to be the greyest, grimmest, most overcast, rainy, horrible conditions to go in a walk. But ever upbeat, ever optimistic, Ramblings goes on. And we're starting today at Shropshire County Council, South Shrewsbury Radbrook Day Service Centre with Mick Rapson. And Mick, tell us why we are going for a walk in this filthy weather.
It's a group we've been running ever since we started the service about 10 years ago. And without any real decision making involved, it was kind of, what are we going to do with people now that we've got them? And we thought we'll go for a walk.
And this is a mental health daycare centre.
Yeah.
So this is walking really for mental health.
At the time, we were really just looking for some useful, optimistic sort of activities that we could do with people, getting out, enjoying the countryside. And I mean, it was something that members of staff did, so we really just extended that.
And normally you'd have a group of what, about?
Normally about half a dozen. I think our most was a dozen and our least was a couple. But that's enough, that's a group.
But sadly the weather's kept quite a lot away today, but we still do have a group and everyone's piled into the minibus here. And we're setting off to Wards. Where are we going today?
We're off to Wilderhope, which is one of the youth hostels in South Shropshire, between Much Wenlock and Church Stretton, in the middle of nowhere.
And here in purple, Georgia, hi.
Hiya.
Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Are you right? Hello, everybody.
Nice.
Right, we've got to get going. We've held you up for long enough. There's a group of about 7 of us in a minibus heading off now. We're going to stop at a shop first of all and get some sandwiches. But we've all been handed a little leaflet explaining exactly where we're going, and that is to Wilderhope Manor. And the walk is 3.5 miles long. Well, it looks as if we're nearly there. We've been driving for about 20 minutes, just turning off the main road. We seem to have climbed quite high and down towards Wilderhope Manor. The minibus windows are steamed up with the fodder of hot breath.
With maps.
Yeah, you've got one?
Well, actually, yeah, I've got a proper ordnance survey map. If anyone is following us on the map, we're on Explorer 217, which is the Long Mind.
Mind.
Do you know, I knew I'd get that wrong. The Long Mind, but spelt with a Y, M-Y-N-D, and Wenlock Edge. And the starter grid reference is 929545. Right. Now, people talk in sort of vague terms about the benefits of walking, but somebody who's actually done a proper study into all of this is Penny Priest. Hi, Penny.
Hi.
I was reading your, was it a dissertation, would you call this?
Yeah, it's for a doctorate in clinical psychology.
It was fascinating stuff, actually, because one has sort of, you know, thoughts and ideas and what you think walking does for you.
Yeah.
But actually to go into it the way that you have done in a very detailed manner. And I noticed in your study that you find that although most of us think that the weather influences our mood, it's not always the case that a sunny day makes you happier.
Well, yeah, this was one of the interesting things. For the 10 weeks that I was coming to the group, we hardly had any really good days. I was thinking that might mean that people didn't come along to the group, but in actual fact, probably on some of the worst days, we had the biggest groups of people. I'm not so sure so much about the weather, but just the general feeling of things being a bit sort of maybe desolate even in some places, that people quite like that. Maybe imagine that people would want to be in a nice sunny environment somewhere lovely where you can see everything for miles around.
But sometimes though that can make you feel worse, can't it? Because you think, I still feel desperate within myself and the sun is shining and everyone else seems to be playing and having a good time and I'm not, and it can make you feel more separate.
Absolutely, and I think that was quite a key thing about how people sort of relate to the landscape, and there seemed to be this sort of process of mirroring and reflecting and people really sort of identifying with the environment. So, you know, if people are feeling a bit down, that, you know, to be in an environment that kind of mirrors that is maybe comforting.
Let's not go wrong straight away then. Mick, are we following blue arrows or pink ones? Pink one's down to the right, okay. From a psychological point of view, what sort of mental health difficulties are we talking about?
In this group, there are people that hear voices, which is something that people would associate with schizophrenia. But there's all sorts of other things, like traumatic experiences that people have been through, difficult living conditions.
Oh, hang on, Mick. We got to
slow down.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you're walking really quick and heads down and you're rushing off.
Sorry.
And I was just going to say, it's one of the things that we try and do with the walk is not to rush around.
Okay.
We want to hang on to people.
All right. We'll slow down.
It's funny actually, because I do really generally when I'm out myself I run actually, so I go really quickly.
We were geeing each other up.
Yeah, but when I was with the group, I did get into this rhythm really of going much slower, and I was really comfortable with that. I think that this walking could be important for anybody, and because we all sort of experience various degrees of distress at various times, and so it could be useful for any person at any point in time, depending on what it is that they might be going through. And
is it and I'm sure you'll say it's a combination of factors, but the physical exercise, the rhythm, the being out in the countryside, the fresh air, being in a group, all of those things?
All of those things, yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned rhythm there. That was something that you'll be talking later to Gio, that we talked about quite a bit. And I think there is something about rhythm that is quite sort of soothing. I mean, you could think back to maybe, babies and that sort of rocking, rhythmic, those sort of experiences that they have that are soothing. Yeah.
We've come up now off the pathway into the open. And actually the rain is sort of drizzling down, but one doesn't really notice it when you get going. And Mick, Penny was just saying about how rhythm is very important. And how long did it take you to work out that rushing is counterproductive?
Well, when we started off, we did all the elementary mistakes. We went up the top of the Wrekin. That was, I don't know, just so verging on disaster, and people confused and lost and exhausted. And I think we quickly realised that if we were going to include people, that we needed to, make sure that it was obvious to people that they weren't going to have to exert themselves beyond their capabilities, that they were going to have a chance to sort of rest, and but most importantly that people would be able to decide what the group did, would have a say in what the group did.
Before Penny joined the group and started her study from a very academic point of view, actually putting it down on paper as research, how much had you noticed the benefits, and what had given you most pleasure?
I think really with the people who come to the service, the indicators that things are going well is that people come back and do it repeatedly. That really was the key thing. It was something that we did every week, and people always came. And we've tried loads and loads of other things, activities and art-based, community-based, leisure stuff, all sorts of things. And walking's really still going on because people always come.
Does it help that walking isn't competitive, and that it also doesn't produce something which is judged at the end of it?
Yeah, I think that people can make anything competitive, but I suppose one of the roles that we've had as staff is to not allow this to become competitive, not allow it to be, 6 miles or 8 miles or 10 miles or this hill or that hill.
So it's not a forced march.
No, definitely not.
And I imagine actually, Penny, to start with, it was quite difficult for you to feel a part of the group. Were some of them suspicious of you?
I think so, yeah. And I think you'd find that in any sort of situation where you're sort of going in as a researcher.
Well, it's the same for us. I mean, there'll be people in the group who have made it clear they don't want to talk, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, but what I did find that is maybe different to other experiences that I've had in my training is that actually when you go out and you're walking alongside somebody, it's a very different way of relating. It feels a lot less pressured. You can be quiet and it doesn't seem like an uncomfortable silence, and you can sort of get a rhythm going with the person that you're walking along with, so it just facilitates conversation really.
We haven't travelled that far so far, but it has been nearly all uphill. And we're just out onto a path now in the woodland, on the edge of a wood, looking back down the field that we just walked through, towards the manor where we started, which is standing proudly stark and grey, blending in rather well with today's background. I do like coming into woods.
Yeah.
Sort of feel very protected.
And we all keep saying about this miserable weather, but I mean, once you're out, it's absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? Like crunching through these leaves.
How surprised have you been at some of the things people have said to you about walking and what they feel about it?
I suppose two things. One was that people sort of seemed to be telling me what I wanted to hear, because for me personally, I find going out walking really rejuvenating and really helpful for me. And I just was aware that I might be looking for that from everyone else, and was mindful sort of to try not to be encouraging people to say the things that I wanted to hear, but they were saying these things. And the second thing is that the way that people talk about this experience was just so poetic often, and that just, that really did surprise me. There was something about the getting away from the hustle and bustle, the concrete and the clay, the nylon and the pylon. This was something that somebody said to me. One of the things that I wondered about was whether people in this group would be interested in joining an existing community group like the Ramblers. But what really did come across very strongly to me was that in this group people do feel like they don't have to be well to come, because other people in the group will understand how they are on a particular day, whereas there's a sort of perception that that might not be the case in another group.
Are we still heading up, Nick? You give us a shout if we're meant to.
Carry straight along through this beech wood. It's just the trickiest part of the walk, really.
It is, it's lovely, isn't it? There's something very comforting about beech trees.
Yeah. And this is, a lot of the walks we do have a something, and this is it for this walk. This is a gorgeous bit. Ancient beech wood, and always good to come back to, because every season is different. The weather change is different. And again, something we don't look at is a new walk every week, because the walks that we do are lovely, and they always change every time you come. It's something different.
And you mentioned that at the beginning there were mistakes that you know that you made and near disasters. Just in being over enthusiastic, do you think, or over ambitious?
Yeah, kind of getting a little bit carried away, and feeling that for people who've had quite restricted lives, long-term institutionalisation, not brilliant quality home lives, you just wanted them to have everything. So I wanted to go to the top of the Wrekin and look at the view, and wanted to go and visit all these places and try out all this stuff. So it was a little bit over enthusiastic. I mean, I don't think anyone suffered for it. It was just that you start thinking about appropriate activities for the person. And again, coming back to this idea that you don't need to climb a mountain to get all the benefits of being out for the day. It's part of being in a group, and it's part of having a walk and doing something sociable and having a coffee and a cake afterwards, which is really fundamental.
Is it?
Absolutely.
What's in terms of the reward, the treat at the end?
Yeah, just the completing the day. For other people, I think they come and they keep coming. And I mean, Giovanni has He came on the first walk with me, and we've spent all that time together. And other walkers who've come have stayed for quite some time. They've enjoyed it.
Well,
they keep coming back.
I'll talk to Gio because he's in a very bright red jacket. Gio, we were just talking about you, and I thought it was rather best to talk to you.
Fine.
Nick was just saying that you came along on the very first walk 10 years ago.
I did, yes, that's right. It was Mortimer Forest at Ludlow, wasn't it, Nick?
What was it about that walk that made you want to keep coming?
It was, first of all, when I went for that walk, I felt like I was being looked after, cared for, after I'd had a heavy time of things with my mental side.
Had you walked before?
I hadn't walked, but I'd done other sports, like running, cycling, swimming.
But you've obviously taken it to your heart and as it were, got all the kit and take it quite seriously.
Yes, I do. I take it very seriously. Well, it's also, seriously, it's like serious fun. It's pure enjoyment. It's a very meditative thing as well, walking in the countryside. More so than, say, running would be. I think walking tends to feel more like a meditation. Yes,
and is it then to do with the places you're going or the people you're surrounded by? Does it matter to you who's in the group on a given day?
No, because I know they're all good people. They've all had mental health problems. So they're very modest people. They're very humble people. And I feel comfortable with them.
Are there walks that you feel...
I like the variety. I like variety on any particular walk, for there to be variety of landscape. I like it when there's a bit of a mix of rain and sun, dry and wet.
Yes, there's something a bit...
Something
once it feels set in like this, there's no sense of anticipation because you just know it's going to be like this all day long.
Yeah, it's still magical. It's always magical.
Gio, I'll just ask you about your feelings when you finish a walk, as opposed to when you start it. What is the process that you go through?
When I get back to the van at the end of the walk, I feel relieved that the walk is over because of the actual tiring effect of it. People with mental health problems, when they're on certain medications, can feel more tired than the average. But there are times when I do feel a flow of endorphins and I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Yes.
And I'm buzzing with the energy, But it's not easy to feel that on, say, lithium and risperidone medication.
Yes.
I think it tends to dampen down
and it must make it very hard. Must make it very hard to tell what is a real emotion.
Yes.
And what isn't, and what is created by.
Yeah, because it's all sort of
everything's dulled a bit.
Blanketed.
Yeah.
By the medication effect.
We've just come through a gate and out of the path from the woods, and suddenly the countryside has opened up, and even though it is this sort of very grey, foggy, muggy day, we can see across to the hills about 2 miles away, and a patchwork of fields and hedgerows just rising up ahead of us. We can't quite see the peak, Mick. Is there a bigger hill just behind? I see a sort of vague shadow.
Yeah, I could describe the view to you.
Oh, please do.
Which is, yes, there's a big hill under that cloud called Branckley Hill. And this valley below us is Corvedale, which swings down south now to Ludlow. And there's another hill in the distance called Tiddestonclea, which is next to Ludlow. So that takes you out to Worcester and the Malverns and out that way. Again, it's the sort of, for me, it's the feeling of like these are the hills on the edge, and beyond that is the flatlands of Worcestershire.
And having created the walks to help other people and to help their mental health, if you like, has it helped yours?
Well, this is the really difficult part about knowing. I share absolutely what Gio says, which is, yeah, I like coming on the walk, and I look forward to Thursdays, and I know what I'm doing, and when I finish the walk I feel good. And that's the important thing, and I think a lot of the studies that are being done now are looking at that, talking to people once they've completed an experience and saying, well, was that good? Do you feel better? And from there's getting to be quite a good research support for walking. This isn't just because we like it. This is something that has measurable benefits for people. And perhaps if we can extend it out to people who might not consider themselves to be walkers, or they might not consider themselves to be country people, that they could benefit from that too.
Yes, this group, it offers a certain sort of security and safety. It feels safe in a way that a local Ramblers group wouldn't feel.
And is that because of Mick and Georgia and the people that you're used to?
Yes, that's right. They make it feel safe for me. I think that a mental health walking group for those who have mental health problems feel safer. I think it's because having had mental health problems, we feel a bit vulnerable. We feel like vulnerable adults, we feel like a bit tender, a bit sensitive and oversensitive. Because I used to belong to clubs in the town. I did a degree course away from home, went abroad with that, had the breakdown and came back, and after being very nerve-wracked with interviews and things for jobs, I decided I would just help my parents out in their restaurant. So for me, the walking group provides a nice little atmosphere in which to have a safe walk and be part of a close family group, really, a close-knit family group, I would say, of walkers.
When you say you feel vulnerable with other people, is there also a frustration, because you are very intelligent, you're very well educated, that sometimes society thinks you're stupid? And you're going to want to say, but I'm not stupid.
Well, I often think
don't make assumptions like that.
Well, you see, I have, that often happens, not to my face, but in the psychotic voices that occur within part of my illness,
So voices
because what
say
it was
that
is
to
that
you.
when I was on my degree course in Sardinia, I had a deadline to meet for 3 essays, and I worried so sick about getting the deadline done on time. I felt I had to satisfy the course tutor's expectations of me, and my parents and my peers and everyone. I felt I didn't want to let anyone down.
Yeah.
So I worried so sick about it, I couldn't sleep. So I heard voices straight away, like 1,000 reverberations in the sky. And it was on the radio, everything seemed to be broadcasting my thoughts to the world and all that sort of thing, and psychosis had started and schizophrenia ensued the following year. My doctor now thinks I'm not schizophrenic because I just say relax all the time. So, because I'm way down the line, I'm recovered now.
Mm-hmm. You used the word control, you were out of control then. Do you feel in control now?
Yes, I do, because the medication keeps me in control. That's the beauty of the medication, you see. It makes you dampens down your florid states, calms and relaxes the patient.
Is there a part of you though that misses that extreme?
In a way, well, I would. My first reaction would be no. I'd rather be on the medication because I know that I'm sort of controlled. Another way, I would rather be not on it and feeling like that, but I'd rather have never had the breakdown in the first place. That's what I'd rather have. So it's another issue altogether.
The rain's just beginning to seep into everything, isn't it? It's when you stop, you notice it.
Yeah, you do.
Carry on walking, it's fine. The other advantage about walking like this and walking the pace we're walking is you can drop back. I mean, as I was saying, Georgia, we haven't spoken to you since we started, and then towards the end of the walk you can mix with different groups. And
I think the lovely thing is, and we've spoken about this before, haven't we, Penny, that you can walk as a group, or you can be apart. You can walk ahead or walk behind or be a part of a group. So really that flexibility is there, and the choice is yours, and there's no pressure to talk if you don't want to.
But equally, there are certain situations, like climbing a stile, we're about to, where it's very difficult to do it without talking to each other. Or saying if somebody slips on us, are you all right, or whatever. So the interaction comes naturally. Yeah.
It's a nice environment just to catch up on the news, have a chance to talk to people. Yeah. You spend time with people. It's a commodity that's very precious.
And you couldn't really do that sort of in town or at a centre or in a room. You have the freedom and the space to be able to sort of get to know one another and the time. So.
Well, we've come back almost full circle, walking back towards the manor, and actually looking back at the field behind us. Spread out in the grass field up at the top are loads of what looks like, I suppose, random Boy Scouts in sleeping bags. Actually bales of hay, very late hay, wrapped in black tarpaulin. Don't know, they look like bodies. Just about to roll down the side of the hill.
We've just walked along that ridge, haven't we?
Yeah, right up there. The chorus of barking dogs will welcome us to the last section of the walk. But Mick, it's not the end of the experience, is it?
No, we're going to get in the minibus now and steam up the windows and head off to Much Wenlock to a cafe there.
Shush! You lot? Do you tend to go back to the same cafe?
Over the years, as you can imagine, we've built up a pretty complete knowledge about the nicest cafes to go to. Bearing in mind, it's not just about the quality of the food, the coffee and the cake, but also accessibility, whether they can cope with a big group of walkers. With muddy boots. And mainly whether they're friendly and want our custom. But yes, we know a good few cafes.